Okay, let's unpack this. You've handed us a stack of fascinating sources, specifically an analysis of the tablets of the divine plan, described here as a comprehensive study of the tablets.
That's right. It's a really in-depth look at 14 particular letters penned over a century ago. And this study, well, it helps us understand their significance.
And our mission today, really guided by this study, is to extract the most important nuggets, figure out what these messages from, the early 20th century mean for us today, and understand why they remain so foundational. The study is quick to point out they were written between 1916 and 1917.
And that specific window is absolutely crucial context. This wasn't a time of peace or, quiet contemplation. As the study emphasizes, these were written right in the middle of the absolute global upheaval of World War I.
1914 and 1918. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. So you have the world literally tearing itself apart on this unprecedented scale, and this plan is being written. The study notes these messages were initially addressed to the Bahá'ís in the United States and Canada.
Precisely. But what's fascinating, and the study highlights this as a key part of the story, is how quickly the scope expanded.
Oh.
Yeah. What started as a focus primarily on North America was rapidly clarified to include all of North, Central, and South America, and ultimately a vision encompassing regions across the entire planet.
Wow. So it wasn't just like regional encouragement. It unfolded into this massive global mandate. According to the study, what was the core purpose behind sending these tablets?
Well, the core purpose, as the study outlines it, was to mobilize the Baha'is, to proactively carry the teachings of Baha'u'llah globally. It was a call to reach every single nation, every tribe, every people on Earth.
Every single one.
Yeah.
And the study frames this global effort as a step towards what larger goal?
Towards fulfilling a prophecy of global unity. The study describes these tablets quite powerfully as the charter for this worldwide work, essentially, the blueprint for achieving that unity.
A charter for unity being drafted while the world was engaged in total war. The contrast is pretty stark, isn't it?
It really is.
Let's talk about how this study breaks down these 14 tablets. How are they structured?
So the study points out a key structural insight. While the ultimate vision is global, the tablets were initially organized geographically.
Okay.
They addressed specific regions, primarily in the Americas, before that scope dramatically broadened to encompass the entire planet.
Gotcha. And the study identifies, 6 core themes that it sees running consistently throughout these tablets?
Yeah.
What are those main areas?
Yeah, the main themes the study highlights are, first, the spiritual mission of North America. Then, the essential role of the individual believer. Third is the imperative of global expansion. Fourth, the foundational power of unity and the covenant. Fifth is the critical relationship between material and spiritual progress. And finally, the powerful promise of divine assistance.
Okay, that gives us a solid framework. Let's dive a bit deeper into what the study says about each of these, starting with the spiritual mission of North America. What's the idea there?
Well, the study presents the idea that North America holds this significant potential. It suggests that it's destined, in some capacity, to take a leading role in establishing peace and unity throughout the world.
A leading role.
Yeah.
And the language used in the tablets to convey this mission, as described in the study, is really vibrant. Lots of metaphors, right?
It absolutely is, yeah. The sources speak of Baha'is being like farmers sowing seeds of divine teachings.
Okay.
There's the vivid image of becoming candles of guidance meant to illuminate the entire world, and a very specific call for those with detached souls to become traveling teachers.
Traveling teachers. That immediately implies active movement, going somewhere. Which brings us nicely to the role of the individual. This call isn't just for a chosen few, is it, according to the study?
Not at all, no. The study strongly emphasizes that every Baha'i is called to participate in this teaching work. It's presented not just as a formal responsibility, but, a fundamental aspect of belief. And the study outlines the different ways this is described as happening. It could be through your personal daily efforts in your community, maybe through financial support for the work, or through what's called pioneering.
Pioneering.
Which means making the sacrifice to actually relocate, often to distant or underserved regions, to help establish the faith there.
That takes incredible dedication.
Wow.
What qualities does the study say are crucial for someone undertaking this kind of teaching? What makes an effective farmer or candle in this context?
Well, the study pulls out several qualities deemed essential. Detachment from material desires is highlighted as paramount, sort of not being held back by worldly comforts.
Makes sense.
Purity of intention is key, doing it solely for the sake of the teachings themselves, not, personal recognition. Reliance on divine confirmation is stressed, meaning trusting that spiritual assistance will be provided rather than relying solely on your own, maybe limited abilities.
Okay.
And importantly, knowledge of languages and cultures, showing respect and the capacity to connect with diverse peoples.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about possessing information. It's fundamentally about character and spiritual grounding.
Exactly.
Let's move to the global scope. The study lists an astonishing number of regions that tablets explicitly mention. Just how vast was this vision?
Oh, for that time, it was truly immense. The tablets specifically called for teaching efforts in places like Alaska, Mexico, all the countries of Central and South America, the Caribbean islands. But then it extends far beyond the Americas, Japan, India, Australia, the Pacific Islands, the entirety of Europe, Asia, Africa.
Wow.
Even the Arctic is mentioned, specifically Greenland and the Eskimos there.
The Arctic. Incredible. And I noticed in the sources that one particular location is singled out for special mention.
Panama.
Yes, Panama. The study notes it's highlighted as a strategic center, and the reasoning given is its unique geographical position connecting the North and South American continents.
Oh, okay.
There's also a clear directive throughout the tablets for the translation of the Baha'i writings into the local languages of all these places the teachers would go. Which makes sense. The message needs to be accessible to resonate. Okay, next theme. Unity and the covenant. How does the study explain that?
So the study identifies the Baha'i covenant as the fundamental basis for unity within the faith itself. It's presented as the spiritual force that protects the community from fragmentation.
Right.
The point the study emphasizes is that true unity, the kind called for in these tablets, is achieved through adherence to the spiritual teachings and principles of the faith, not through, say, political affiliations or nationalistic ties.
Which were obviously huge factors in the war happening then.
Exactly. The contrast is deliberate.
So, a spiritual foundation for unity, distinct from worldly divisions. How does the study discuss the relationship between material and spiritual progress? I mean, the early 20th century was a time of rapid technological and social change.
It was, and the sources, according to the study, acknowledge and even praise scientific and cultural advancements. However, there's a strong warning articulated against the dangers and imbalances of excessive materialism. The idea presented is that the Baha'i teachings offer necessary solutions to the fundamental challenges of the modern world, suggesting a required harmony of science and religion. The study sees this not as science and spirituality being opposed, but needing to be integrated for true progress.
That feels incredibly relevant even today, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Finally, the promise of divine assistance. What does the study say about this assurance within the tablets?
It conveys a very clear and powerful assurance that those who arise to teach, who undertake this challenging work, will receive what are termed heavenly confirmations.
Heavenly confirmations.
Which the study describes as tangible, often surprising forms of divine support and assistance aiding their efforts, like real help showing up when needed.
And does the study provide examples to illustrate this, like historical ones?
Yes, it does. It points to historical precedents from other faiths, like the rapid spread of the message by the early apostles of Christ or the early Muslims, who, despite having very limited material resources, were able to transform societies and spread their message globally through their faith and reliance on that spiritual assistance. The study uses these as historical parallels to the promise given in the tablets of the divine plan.
Using history to ground the promise of future success. That's interesting. This study also picks out specific tablets to highlight, which makes them feel more concrete. Can you give us a flavor of what some of them called for?
Sure, absolutely. The study points to the tablet addressed to the northeastern states from March 1916, for instance. It specifically calls believers to ignite the light of the love of God in cities where the faith wasn't yet known.
Right.
Explicitly using those agricultural metaphors, like being heavenly farmers, to cultivate new ground.
And the southern states. What was the focus there?
The tablet to the southern states, written just the next day, March 27th, emphasized the great need for teachers in that particular region. It compared the act of teaching there to reviving barren land with spring showers. Very evocative.
It's striking how the language is tailored. I saw the Central States tablet mentions Chicago specifically.
Yes, the study highlights this, calling Chicago the heart of America in terms of its potential importance for the faith. And it mentions the significance of the first Baha'i house of worship in the West being built there, the Mashrika Adkar.
The temple, right? And the Western states. What was highlighted there?
That tablet likened California to the Holy Land, seeing it as a potentially radiant source from which spiritual influence could flow. The study notes it particularly encouraged teaching efforts among Native Americans, recognizing their inherent spiritual capacity.
Interesting. And Canada and Greenland. That seemed like an especially vast and challenging area mentioned.
It certainly was. The tablet addressed to them predicted a glorious future for Canada, even while acknowledging the potential for initial resistance. And yes, it specifically urged teaching among the indigenous peoples and the Eskimos in those northern regions. It was truly pushing the boundaries of the vision.
It's remarkable how specific and yet how globally expansive the vision was right from the start. The study also notes that the later tablets, written in 1917, they reinforced these core themes.
They did, often with added urgency as the war dragged on. And they included specific prayers for those undertaking this service and further assurances of divine support to bolster their efforts.
So bring this all together now. What was the actual tangible impact of these tablets, according to the study? Did they just remain inspiring words written during a difficult time, or did they lead to action?
No, the study is very clear that they led to significant practical results. They directly inspired the first organized, systematic teaching and expansion campaigns in the history of the Bahá'í Faith.
The first ones.
Yes. This wasn't spontaneous. It was a deliberate, planned response to the directives in these tablets, leading to the establishment of communities across the globe.
And that call for traveling teachers, did that actually happen?
Oh, absolutely. That directly translated into the pioneering movement. The study details how thousands of Baha'is, motivated by these specific calls and assurances, literally relocated their lives.
Thousands.
Yes, often to challenging and distant parts of the world, purely to fulfill this vision. It mentions notable figures from that era, people like Martha Root and Agnes Alexander, as embodiments of this spirit, real people who uprooted everything.
So they fueled individual action and organized campaigns. Did they also influence the structure of the faith itself, according to the study?
Absolutely. The study traces how the principles outlined in these tablets profoundly guided the development of the Baha'i administrative order and its institutions.
How so?
Well, the vision and directives within them provided the foundation for the structure that would ultimately include the Universal House of Justice, the international governing body of the faith. The blueprint was there.
And their relevance for today, are they just historical documents now, or?
The study asserts they remain absolutely central. It states that current global Baha'i teaching plans, including those focused on community building and social transformation in neighborhoods around the world, are still based on the principles and the vision articulated in these specific tablets from over a century ago.
Still the core guide. So if we try to capture the essence of what this comprehensive study presents, it sees the tablets of the divine plan as what was the term it used? A divine blueprint.
A divine blueprint for the spiritual unification of humanity.
Yeah.
The study emphasizes they uniquely provide both visionary guidance, the grand picture, and practical steps, the instructions on how to get there.
A blueprint with both the dream and the directions.
Yeah.
That's quite something. And the ultimate call, according to the study. Who is it for?
The call is directed to every single believer. It's presented as a universal summons to action. The study includes this powerful quote from Abdu'l-Bahá from the tablets themselves.
What did it say?
The scope of your exertions must needs be expended. The wider its range, the more striking will be the evidence of divine assistance.
The wider its range, the more striking will be the evidence of divine assistance. That's a really compelling idea, isn't it? Linking the scale of the effort directly to the level of support received.
It is. It's a promise tied to action.
So thinking about everything we've just explored from this study here is this plan for global unity written over 100 years ago, right in the middle of a devastating world war.
Yeah.
That the study says directly led to significant worldwide growth and is still considered the central guide for global efforts towards peace and unity today. I mean, what does that suggest to you about the nature of a plan like this? It makes you think, doesn't it?
It certainly forces you to consider the origin, the source of such a plan. How could a vision conceived in such a moment of darkness possess such enduring power and, frankly, capacity to mobilize action for over a century? It's profound.
It definitely leaves you with a lot to ponder. This has been a truly insightful deep dive into the tablets of the Divine Plan, really guided by this comprehensive study you shared. Thanks for bringing it.
Exploring sources like these is invaluable, I find. They really help clarify not just the historical context, but the underlying principles and motivations that continue to shape action today.
Absolutely. It gives a much clearer picture of the foundation. Thanks for walking us through these materials and their analysis.
My pleasure. Hopefully it illuminates why this collection of writings holds such a foundational place for so many.
It certainly does. And it leaves us, and hopefully you listening, with a powerful thought to carry forward.